Another question in the back, yes.
For Professor, you stated several times that the law at the time of the conflict is what should be applied, and you also stated that in your analysis of the invasion of Afghanistan, you initially believed that it was warranted, but that you subsequently doubted that based on the case from Congo with the ICJ. What subsequent developments in the law should we use to reanalyze previous decisions, especially in the JAG Corps, where we often have to give on-the-spot determinations of the law to commanders before they make decisions?
I think that's a tremendous question. I think we could have made the case for ourselves under the Tadich decision, which had the lower level, if the facts had been better. But the facts were probably never good enough, even under that lower test. But as a general matter, and in these questions we were talking about, when Professor Fletcher just said, you know, it shouldn't be so cut and dried, black and white, war or peace, where we were moving before 9/11 was toward an expansive, always a larger understanding of the importance of human rights, and to minimizing where the zone of war was and when we were allowed to use what are exceptional rights, to kill without warning, to detain without trial. Human rights law was expanding. Those exceptions to it were contracting. And one of the I think most negative impacts of the decisions made in the White House and the Justice Department on 9/12 and 9/11 was to expand exponentially and make all the world a zone of war. So I would advise you, when there's a gray area or a question between whether this is where we should be applying human rights law that prevail in peace or the rights that we have in armed conflict, to err on the side of peace and human rights. That will usually be the much safer option as a lawyer.
Time for one last question.
Merkel.
Professor Fletcher, would you tell us why conspiracy is not a war crime?
Thank you. Maybe it is. I don't know. I was the lawyer for the position that it is not. So that's what I just said. You're telling me it's not? What's your argument for why it's not? You've got it in my brief.
It wasn't from Nuremberg on. It wasn't. I mean, no.
Well, in Nuremberg, count one used the charge of conspiracy to violate the
not mere association.
But they didn't. In one of the arguments that I made was that Nuremberg limited the conspiracy charge to crimes against peace. They didn't use it crimes against humanity or war crimes. So this was a kind. This isn't very explicit, but it's something to go on. Now the ad hoc tribunals have used conspiracy to use commit genocide. So there are some possible exceptions in contemporary international law. But a combination of international arguments, historical arguments, and jurisprudential arguments, I think the best argument actually is an argument that, based on comparative law, that conspiracy is a creature of the common law system. And if it's just a creature of the common law system, it cannot be part of international law, because international law has to be basically the same for all legal systems around the world. So if something exists as a peculiar feature of our legal culture, and it does not exist in the civil law tradition, that becomes a powerful argument. Now, when I say it doesn't exist in the civil law tradition, that's problematic. If you're very good on the other side, you can come up, well, with arguments, as I said, yes, well, we have, civil law communities have crimes of membership, which take the place of conspiracy. Our problem has always been that we don't have a crime of membership. And then we added to that the problem of not having a conspiracy. So actually, but the FCA, 2006, came back and recognized some form of conspiracy as a war crime. So this matter is not settled.
Please join me in thanking this panel for a wonderful.
Well, we kept them awake. You kept me awake as well. Thank you.
And let me also thank Professor Bank, Professor O'Connell, Professor George Fletcher, and Professor Washburn. I think they did a wonderful job. Certainly kept us energized after lunch. Thanks once again.